Greetings, fellow travelers and seekers of life mastery, and welcome to Life Mastery TV, your source for inspiration, empowerment, and fulfillment. My name is David McLeod, and I am your Life Mastery coach. Today's topic is entitled The Purpose of Purpose. Now, everyone has a deep spiritual purpose, whether you know it or not. And today we're going to look at the importance of uncovering that purpose and making it a fundamental cornerstone of your entire life. Today, we're going to cover 4 basic things. First, the concept of imposed purpose versus true purpose. Second, your purpose as a direction finder. And third, creating a purpose statement. And fourth, the real purpose of purpose. And to help me with this topic, I've invited a very special guest today. He is a speaker, author, business coach, and e-learning expert who is committed to helping authors, teachers, entrepreneurs, and change agents light up the world with their message. He's the creator of Launch Academy, a live online training program that teaches participants how to successfully launch transformative and lucrative online courses and grow their global learning community. He's also one of the principal creators of a program called the Power of Purpose Global Summit and the Man on Purpose 7-week online course. So this guy knows a lot about purpose, and he's very passionate about it. So please join me in welcoming Chris Kyle to our show today. Welcome,
Hey,
Chris. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, David. Great to be here with you, and I'm excited about this topic, as always.
I know. I always see you light up whenever you and I talk about purpose, your heart just opens, your mind opens, and then your eyes just kind of beam out this beautiful light. And I just love talking about it with you. So thank you again for being here.
Yay.
So I suggested, first of all, that I wanted to talk a little bit about this idea of imposed purpose versus true purpose. Now, I don't know how you feel about this, but I in my life, I noticed that a lot of people, we all arrive here and we go into our lives and, we're kind of thrust into the whole world and we have all these messages thrown at us and we're trying to fit in, we're trying to conform, we're trying to be good people, we're trying to have the best relationships possible. And it seems from the outside like that is the purpose that we're given. And yet many of us, maybe we don't even, I'd say a lot of people on this planet don't even go beyond that. They just kind of live their lives and then end up burned out at the end wondering, oh my God, what happened? Why am I so unsatisfied? So how does that sound to you? I mean, does that resonate with your experience? Do you find that happens?
Yeah, it does. And I think if you're open to it, a great starting place would be to explore a little bit of the definition of purpose. Because I find that that's important to then start talking about this idea of imposed and authentic purpose. And maybe you can help me with it from your own knowledge of you living your own purpose and all that. So the number one thing that I share with people around purpose, the first thing is it's actually not a thing that I do or have. It's a way of being.
Yeah, I like that.
Purpose is a way of being. Thinking of it as, okay, you could say I have purpose or I don't have purpose, but you and I, when we get past this imposed thing, is I would say at some level, we all have purpose that's working in, and whether we align with it or we resist it or whatever. So it's a way of being where we accept and open more toward what is this thing that's deep inside of me, that call it that place from soul, that place that why am I here on this planet? Right. It really fundamentally answers the question. If it's a way of being, it fundamentally answers the question of why, David, you, and why me? Why am I here? Right. Why am I here? And, and purpose can have different flavors and move and shift. We can talk a little bit later about purpose as a form or purpose as that way of being. Like I could say, hey, I feel really on purpose, but I'm doing this now, and then I'm doing that, and then I'm going to write a book and all those can be influencing and supporting purpose. So it's really that way of being that gives me the why and has me connect more deeply to my soul, to who I am, and maybe soul and spirit, that downward thing of soul and that sense of connected to all that is through spirit. Correct. My purpose connects me to those those fundamental things of being human that gives me meaning is my soul and that sense of spirit and being in spirit, being infused with it. And so then when we talk about creating a purpose statement or whatever it is, it's just a reflection of that, not saying that I have a purpose statement, so now I have purpose. It's deeper than that, and then that becomes a reflection of it.
Right. I agree with that entirely. When you say it's a way of being, that makes me think that there's a deeper part, that the purpose is actually a reflection or a manifestation or an expression of who I really am. And that kind of goes back to your way of being. It's because of who I am is my way of being. Then my purpose is essentially an expression of that part of me. Yes. And the truth of who I am is much deeper than all the thoughts and the stories and the roles and the beliefs and everything else that I have in my head. It's something that's, as you say, I notice your hands pushing down. For me, that's it, man. It's down deep inside there somewhere.
Yeah, I love what you're saying there. It's really important because then that helps to put context of writing a purpose or doing a certain thing in the world as a reflection of that deeper way of being that comes from here as a reflection out, which we'll call in our culture, he or she is living on purpose. Yeah, I mean, it depends on what they're doing in the world. Some people would look like it. They're working for a nonprofit, for some kind of global nonprofit, and they think it looks purposeful, but they're miserable inside, right?
Yeah.
So at some level, we can kind of look at somebody who's doing so amazing things in the world. They must be purposeful. That can be a red herring. That can be something where they're actually not living from their fullest purpose, even though it looks like in the world to others, this is maybe the imposed thing. It does look like somehow, my God, they're so doing such great work in the world. That's even the flip of it. Or you can have an executive in a Fortune 500 company who is completely living their purpose inside that company, right? It doesn't mean leaving a company and starting a startup or a nonprofit or writing a book. It means living from that place, that being state that feels purposefully aligned with who you are. Yeah.
Right. That's a really interesting point, and I think a powerful one that I don't want to just gloss over, and that is, no matter how it may look to us on the outside, somebody out there may or may not be living their purpose. We don't necessarily know.
Right.
We're simply observing and having our own perspective and making our interpretations and our own judgments. And whether that person is actually living on purpose or not is really only up to them to know.
Right. That's right. That's exactly right. So now coming back to imposed, one of the things I teach around purpose is similar to what you're saying about imposed, is living the default life.
Yes.
So living the default life is somehow looking outside of myself to see what I think is successful or should be successful or should be purposeful for me. And I'm following the threads and the cookie crumbs outside of myself and living what the culture is kind of expecting me to live that feels purposeful. And then that's living the default life rather than living the juicy, purposeful life. And my favorite word, juicy.
I know, me too. I love that word.
Living that purposeful life. And so there is what I am agreeing with you is then the culture in our society in terms of the markers of success is imposing a certain purpose on most of us.
Right.
But also based on gender, maybe based on even socioeconomic status, different parts of the world. So there is different flavors of it. I'm not saying it's a monoculture globally, but that there is some imposed sense of what should be your purpose, David. Right. And the culture is kind of telling us that. And then we keep buying those messages of what that looks like in terms of success and feeling purposeful and doing the things in the world that I should be doing. And that should is always the thing that I need to look at the most, is if I'm saying any kind of should to myself, there's a question there.
Correct. Yeah. Because the word should is just a judgment anyway, and it implies that something is lacking.
Right. So, that's right.
Yeah. Right. Well, this whole concept and this part of the conversation is really, really interesting to me because, this default purpose that you talk about is pervasive. It's everywhere. Mm-hmm. I know. And our culture and the messages of our culture seem to say, you've got to do this and this and this and this and this and this if you want to be, quote, successful, unquote.
Yes.
And yet most people who are, quote, successful, unquote, aren't really truly fulfilled or happy. they may say they are, and they may even believe to some extent they are, but when it really comes down to it, they say, there's something missing in my life. Otherwise, they wouldn't keep chasing after another, shiny silver object.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's the disease, it's the mental and heart disease of our current times, which is that we live in a consumerist, materialist world that's infecting the whole world, right? I mean, every little corner now, every little part of Africa, Asia, Antarctica, you name it, is now in this place that more material things will lead to more happiness, right? Will lead to more meaning. I think a lot of people recognize that's not necessarily true, David. So there's those that just think that they're on that habit trail, that are on that little wheel, that if I just get to that place of success and money and have enough, then I will be happy, right? But then there's also many of those that are saying, no, I get it, Craig, I get what you're saying. That's not a material success. That's not going to make me happy, but they're still caught in the story, David.
Right.
Fully caught in the story. So they say it intellectually, they say, yeah, totally. I mean, I'm focused on my relationships and other things, and they're really not. They're still buying into the story, living for that. And then there's a whole new wave of people, you and I and others and all that are saying, okay, how do I really live? How do I uncover what's deep in my own heart and soul, and then live from a place that feels like this is my calling, or this is what I need to bring. These are the gifts I need to bring, regardless of what the culture says or what my friends say or whatever. And here's the blend is, can I be successful with it? Can I have impact with that and be both purposeful and both have a meaningful life and make the money that I need to make, but not put the money and the material thing at the center of my life,
right?
The center of the mandala. If I put my purpose or my spiritual path at the center, then I can still constellate important things around me. But the moment I put materialism or the default life or what culture says is successful right at the middle, then it's a recipe for, just unhappiness and a lot of those shoulds that we were talking about.
Right. Well, that's a beautiful image, Chris, the idea of a mandala, and having the purpose, the true essence of who I am and my purpose right at the center, and letting everything else kind of, I like the word constellate, so it just basically encircles me, and it becomes an expression. Every little aspect, every direction I turn in that circle points to a direction where I'm expressing a certain aspect of myself and my purpose.
Right.
That's a beautiful image, and I really, really like that.
Yeah, thank you. And then those pieces that are still important on the outer part of the mandala, they can come and go, and they move in and out of my life. Whereas my purpose and my sense of connection to spirit or to source or to whatever divinity or not. I mean, even if you don't believe in that, there is some sense of a center of who I am that's unshakable, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And that can actually both provide me a sense of what I take on in that outer mandala, but even more importantly, what I say no to.
Yeah, exactly.
Of too many yeses in our culture to say, no, that is not aligned fully with my purpose enough. So even though I want to, and I think that would give me, some cachet in the marketplace, or people would like me more, whatever. But if it's not fully aligned, I get to say no to some of those places where I might have said yes in the past if I wasn't really grounded fully at the center of my mandala with who I am, my purpose, and my spiritual path, of growth and awakening. Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's another really great point. And you're just kind of leading into our next bullet point here, which is really using your purpose as a direction finder. And you said it already. When I am clear on my purpose and on who I am and my connection to spirit and so forth, it's easy for me to say, yes, this is in alignment with who I am. And, this isn't. Now, there may be some way that I can bring this thing into alignment, or maybe there isn't. Maybe for this particular portion of my life, it's better for me simply to follow this alignment over here. And I think this is a really, really important topic that people really have to get. Once you have a clear sense of what your purpose is based on who you are, then the alignment piece starts to happen automatically.
Right.
And as you say, the mandala, I can see the mandala now starting to take on a shape that's more consistent with who I am and why I'm here.
Yeah, it's beautifully well said, David. And I think that when we come back to this idea of purpose as a way of being, then it is helping us to direct ourselves, but without so much attachment to form,
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
A lot of people want to make form the purpose, meaning I'm going to go teach middle school in an inner city,
Right. Correct.
And that form feels like that's my purpose, and it's not.
Right.
It's the thing that's underneath that, that sense of wanting to give back and to teach kids, and that feeling that my gift is to work with children in that way, and all that. So you find that deeper current as that wayfinder. And I think that just to share a little bit of my own story is I believe it also is, it continues to evolve. I mean, we can create purpose statements, we can get clarity on how our purpose is unfolding, but throughout our lives, especially if you're 21 and then they're 35 and then you're 68, very different stages of life where purpose as it unfolds is very different, even though the quality of being connected to myself as purpose, my soul purpose, even though the form changes, that doesn't change. That sort of unshakable connection to myself, right?
Right.
And so in my own journey, for the last 8 years, I've been helping entrepreneurs and authors and teachers, get more clear on their message and build community around it, launch online courses. And it's been very fulfilling for me. And I've noticed over the last couple of years, as I check in with myself, as I go inward, doing my own soul work, my own deeper work, checking in with my heart, I'm noticing that there's a shift now in more of the expression. This is the wayfinder, the pathfinder.
Right.
There's a different now expression that's wanting to come out of me, out of that place of purposefulness. And it's much more of working with people in nature and working with leaders in nature and wanting to actually be more outdoors, more unplugged from our technology. Doesn't mean like, hey, I'm not advocating we should never do it. It's our lives now. But how do we have a healthier relationship with technology, with ourselves, with nature, and find ways to open ourselves and grow and learn by doing that more out in nature? And so that's like calling me, and all this work I do online it's interesting because I'm now in that tension of my own purpose of saying, I like this and I like all this technology and this online stuff, but somehow I'm feeling that that's not enough for me and not enough for what wants to come out of me in terms of what I give, offer, teach. And so it's I'm in what I call like a purpose, a tension point, and the compass, like you're saying, as a pathfinder or wayfinder, is actually shifting for me, and I'm willing to listen to it and follow it, just like you're saying, as a pointer, as a pathfinder.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a beautiful image, and I had a similar experience in my own life. And I think you and I are absolutely in agreement about this. The concept of, I guess I think of purpose as something that has no form. Mm-hmm. And the things that you're talking about, when some of us have this notion of form, to me, that's like a goal or an objective. That's a very specific thing. And it does have form. It's very specific. But it can be in alignment or out of alignment with our true purpose. That's the point I'm trying to make here. And the true purpose may be something that will last a lifetime, but as you say, it may shift also. But what I've found for me is my true vision for a world that I want to live in doesn't shift at all. But the things I do to try and make that world a reality do shift. Those things change from day to day. One day I may be very, very hot on doing this one thing because I think that's going to help people. And then maybe later I'll get some feedback or some response that tells me, no, maybe it's not working so well. So no, maybe I should shift to do something else. And I think that's what's happening for you right now. This is what you're talking about, because your deeper purpose still drives you to want to help people, still drives you to want to try and create the kind of world that really resonates for you. But now you're looking at different ways of doing that. And I think it's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. And one of the things, just to ground that, and this at some level this might oversimplify it, but Eckhart Tolle in his book Another Earth he spoke a lot about purpose, and one of the things that was fundamental to his teaching around that is that every human being has a fundamental purpose. Every single human being, and I agree, and that's to wake up. Period. Then he says, as you look at individual flavors of how we are in the world and moving in the world, then there may be a secondary purpose, which is how do I unfold that in my own life or support others in waking up? And then I have my own thing. That's teaching, that's leading courses, that's writing a book, or that's just working in an organization. So there's all these different ways. And I've aligned with that. And I'm kind of reflecting on that as you're speaking now. Is I get that there's this sense of this purpose and this way of being is unshakable throughout life. But once we start putting words to it, it starts to actually create form.
Yeah, absolutely.
So then at some level, and this is what my highest level purpose is, that I'm a catalyst for growth and awakening of all beings. So it's a little bit of a variation of what Eckhart is saying, but if I had to get down to the nut of what I feel in my own core, and the deepest part of me is that I'm a catalyst for my own growth and awakening and to support others. It's the bodhisattva path in Buddhism, or the service path and whatever other tradition or religion that you look at. Is then there is this place where I want to not only do my work to be more present, more awake, more aware, more conscious, but also how am I doing that to help others or to support others in their own suffering or challenges, so that I'm in service back to that. So in some ways that, if others resonate with that, at some level, we're all in this place of unfolding our evolution of being more aware and awake and conscious beings. And that's probably the deepest purpose that I can find. There's then it's flavors on top of that, David, really.
Absolutely. When you said that, I've read a lot of Eckhart Tolle's work, and for some reason, it didn't quite hit me until you just said it the way you said it. We all have one purpose, and that's to wake up. Yeah. And I think that's very much in alignment with what I already believe anyway, although I would phrase it a little differently. To me, waking up means recognizing, acknowledging, and expressing the truth of who I really am. That's what waking up means to me. And I suspect that's what it means to Eckhart Tolle too, although he uses the phrase waking up in his own way.
Yeah, right.
And that's, I think, a very, very important point. Most of us go through our lives pretending to be something that we're not really.
Right.
And refusing to acknowledge the truth of who we are, because we have come to believe that some parts of ourselves are not acceptable, they're inappropriate, they're bad, they're wrong. And so we hide those and we put this front out there. We present our representative, if you like, who goes out there and talks on our behalf.
Right.
So
I just had a quick thought. Somebody told me, Jim Mitchell, who you might know from Arizona, he has this whole thing about fire your rep.
Exactly. Yeah.
So there is that rep out there, and at some point you have to fire your freaking rep.
Exactly. And the problem is you can't just fire him once.
Yeah.
Because your rep may take a brief vacation, go out for a smoke break, but he's going to turn around, come back in the back door, and he's going to be right there again.
That's right.
This is the whole point. We forget about who we really are. We present this false image, and then we start to believe in the false image. And as a result of that, we're falling asleep. And that's where this whole thing about Eckhart Tolle comes out. And I love his work. But most people, I think the idea of waking up has a certain limited context, you know?
Right. I get that. Or it feels too big. It's that kind of idea of waking up in the sort of Eastern tradition, spiritual tradition, is a hard, long, arduous path.
Yeah.
It's that kind of quality of, oh my gosh, well, to be like the Buddha, I'm going to have to blah, 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 blah. And I like what you're saying is to just reframe it more as it's learning how to become more and more my true self, the deepest self, my true nature, letting my true nature effervesce and bubble through and come out, that is not filtered through all of my wounding, all of my patterning, the cultural default method of being a human being. And then, so that's true nature. That's our true nature bubbling up, which is then more and more aware of, oh, well, then I'm a being of love and a being of compassion and care and thoughtfulness and presence. And so those are all the qualities that relate to what you're saying, is that waking up is just waking up to that true nature. That is.
Yeah. And the other thing that happens is, well, this has been my experience anyway, the more I delve into the darker parts of myself and uncover those parts that I've previously hidden and get to know them better, the more I begin to see the deeper and deeper and the more beautiful parts of who I really am. And then as I continue to do that work, purpose becomes easier and easier and easier for me to connect to. This is an amazing dichotomy that I have never even contemplated before I started doing this work. And so I tell people, really, there's only one thing you need to know in life. And that one thing you need to know is who you really are. Everything else emanates from that.
Right. That's right. Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah. And I mean, just to echo what you're saying about this sort of the darker places of our personality, and to be able to see those more clearly, work through those shadows, those beliefs, the belief structures. It's kind of the great evolutionary promise now of Western psychology and Eastern thought and Christian mysticism, and all of them coming together to say, wow, I actually am this beautiful being that you're talking about. Who am I truly? But I need to do some work of shedding the things that don't serve me, that I keep holding on to. And so, it's another one of my favorite authors and teachers is Bill Plotkin, Animas Valley Institute. And that's what he is committed to, is doing that soul work. And doing that soul work is that descending journey into the dark places to see what is there. What does the soul want from there? That is a pointer toward the purpose, this idea of soul purpose, because I think you've used that before, kind of marrying those two words. It's sort of, there's purpose, but then you could also say it as soul purpose. That's my true nature aligned with why am I here? Who am I and why am I here? And so that soul work is so important. I mean, that's an important piece that I teach. I teach this is purpose isn't just all fun and games and ha ha ha. That I teach it as the way to it is down and in, right? I mean, that's probably the most important way, is to begin looking at how I actually take myself away from any sense of knowing who I am, like you said, and what is my purpose, or what's my soul calling. And so I have to go down and in the hero's journey. And that's dark places, and that's in the cave, and that's in the shadows, and in the places that I don't want to look, that start to open up and reveal behind those little closed places the light that's shining through, and the glitter and all that.
Yeah, that's actually a very, very powerful statement too, Chris. I mean, I often say to people, in is the only way out. If you think that there's a way out, I'm sorry, there isn't, unless you go in. That's it.
Right.
And it does seem scary at first. I remember when I first started doing shadow work, I was terrified. I was worried that other people were going to just hate me and run away from me and all the rest of it. But what I discovered was the exact opposite happened. The more I was willing to show those dark parts of myself, the more people were willing to see me for who I really am and spend more time with me. They could trust me more because I was no longer hiding those dark parts of myself.
Right, right.
And the other benefit that came about of this was, the more I revealed of my darkness, the less darkness there was to reveal. I became more and more comfortable with all those dark parts of myself, and I was able to love them and heal them and bring them back and integrate them back into my full being. Now, I'm not saying my work is done. By no means is it done, but I have done a lot, and I know you have too. And it's been an amazing journey.
Yeah, for me too. And, even now, the core wound that I keep working with that impacts my purpose and my soul's calling is that I'm not enough, or I'm not wanted. And so my pattern is to then do so much and accomplish so much and create so much, the default life of success, so that you love me, that you see me, that you like me. And that pattern continues to play in a way where then I have all the answers. I got it. I'm good, and then you're right. People not only can they not sort of trust me, but they also can't feel me, Dave. You know what I mean? They can't, they come up against my reps wall, right?
Exactly.
They come up against the rep wall. Where's Chris? And so the more that I open to that and share my grief or my sadness, or sometimes it doesn't even have any content, the grief or sadness, or as I talk about those places where I feel small or wounded or not good enough, then that opens me vulnerably, like you said, to then invite people into the truth of who I am, light and dark.
Yeah. It's a beautiful thing, man. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And so I'd like to get back to purpose here a little bit. One of the things that we talked about early on was this idea of creating a purpose statement. Now, I heard you say something that I thought was just absolutely spot on. And that is, when we put words to it, that sometimes gives it form.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of takes away from its overall meaning, which is one of the reasons that I found creating my own purpose statement so difficult.
Yeah.
I didn't want to use words that limited the purpose in any way, but I wanted to create something that I could just look at and meditate on, and then let that become a guiding light, if you like, for my life.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think of as a purpose.
Yeah.
And so what I do is I use the system that you and I both know from MKP, and I originally learned it from Bill Kauth's book, A Circle of Men. And that is the idea of creating a vision for your life, describing what you think is the ideal world that you want to live in. And maybe it's not just a world, maybe it's an entire universe, however it is, and come up with a very, very short description of that world as your ideal place. And then once you've got that ideal place, you imagine how you yourself have been showing up in order to help create that beautiful place. What kind of actions do you take? And not necessarily concrete actions, but actions of a nature that help to create this space. You know what I'm saying? I
do, yeah.
And so that's what I try and teach people, is come up with that kind of a statement.
And
I know I have one, and I'll share mine if you'd like to share yours. Mine is, I create universal harmony by modeling, fostering, and facilitating authentic magnificence.
Beautiful. Oh, I like that. One thing that I know, just to add on to what you just shared as your own purpose statement or mission statement, however you hold it, is that there's a quality of poetic feel to it. Like if you say it again, I can actually feel the energy of the words, that it's almost like poetry that goes right to the heart. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. Tell me yours.
Well, so mine, and we come from a tradition of the Mankind Project. And so that what you're saying, Bill Kauth, and teaching that, it's not actually how I teach purpose and creating a purpose statement now, but I have mine, which is that that I nurture and inspire all journeys of self-discovery, creating a vibrant, loving, and connected world. And I've just
flipped it. Dude, I just wanna take that in for a second.
Right.
Because that's a beautiful statement. And what I like about both of these statements is they're bigger than both of us. They are much bigger than both of us. Neither one of us may ever see exactly what we want to create during this lifetime. Right. But as long as we hold those images in our life and continue to try showing up in the way that we believe will create that, we will at least move the world in that direction. And we will, I think, all of our actions and choices that we make and so forth in the coming days, weeks, months, and years before we die will all contribute to that. Yes. That's what I like about it. And you're right about the poetry, man. You felt like real beautiful poetry right to my heart. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. And I think just something that you've alluded to is that it's the statement, if somebody is creating a purpose statement or a mission statement, is it's got to feel big enough that you're really not going to complete it in your lifetime. That's a good measure of reading it and going, if it said something like, and to be a teacher for the next 20 years of my, that at some point, then when that ends, okay, my purpose is done, I guess. So you really want this sense of this statement to be a lifelong journey of those words reflect what you could be doing all the way until your dying day, your last breath. One of the things that I teach that's a little bit, because you noticed I said earlier, that's a mission statement within that structure of what, Bill has taught, what you've learned of this vision plus action equals mission or purpose. And some others that teach around it, like Tim Kelly with his book, True Purpose, and others, is I also have people investigate as a way of looking at writing a purpose statement is, what is their essence? How would they describe just their essence that has nothing to do with a world or a vision of something that I'm doing in action? It's just my essence plus the gifts that I'm here to bring, plus then aligned actions. And that's a little bit of the mission statement there, is that there are actions that I may be doing. So when you combine those three pieces of sort of my essence and my gifts and my actions, you can create kind of more, even a more robust purpose statement, if you will. Or you could simplify it, like I've said, is this, I'm a catalyst for growth and awakening of all beings. And so that is a simplified version of looking at what is my essence, what are the gifts that I have to bring, and then where am I in action around that?
Right.
That's action that can be ongoing, right? It's not action as too well defined. So when somebody's looking at that from a place of purpose, there is this both inner and outer. I'm declaring who I am as I see my essence, and then I'm also declaring what I believe is the calling of my gifts. And then how might I put those into action? And then, as we've said earlier, I do feel like the purpose statement we're talking about here, a mission statement, could evolve and shift over time.
Sure.
Because it is just words trying to reflect what is in my heart and my soul around my purpose that might shift over time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know mine has shifted a number of times.
Right.
And it's taken a while for me to find just this one 11-word statement that resonates fully within my heart. Yeah. But I like what you said about the I am a catalyst for change, for the awakening of all beings.
A catalyst for growth and awakening of all beings, period. Yeah.
What I like about that is you are now taking it on as who you are. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so it's an expression then. This is a true expression of who you really are, rather than a simple statement of what you create or how you create it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a beautiful way of doing it.
Yeah, thank you. And that's some of the other words of my essence that I've used in various iterations of my purpose statement, which what I shared with you is my mission statement from the work that we both do. But some of them are presence, passion, this idea of being a catalyst, which is also part of my gift. And then also this place of compassion and care. Yeah. So these are some of the words. And courageous. So I have some of those, and somebody could laundry list all. And one of the things I teach is, what's your grand triad? I teach this. If you have 5 or 6 or 8 things, which is awesome. When people do this and I'm teaching them, they start to shift out of all of that negativity, the woundedness, I'm broken, into starting to really claim all these beautiful qualities that are very authentic for them. But then I say, what's your great triad? And the triad is the 3, right? If you had to put 3 of those together that kind of meld a beautiful triad, what are those 3? So it might be like presence, courage, and passion, for example. Right. And then that helps to then somebody to ground into their grand triad is pointing to all those variations of those 3, but that grounds them into saying, regardless of how I deliver, quote unquote, my purpose in the world, that I am owning that in myself as part of my bubbling, glittery nature, that shiny nature of who I am, that has my own flavor. And again, it's just words as markers of the flavor of who I see myself to be in my true nature. And then my gifts is taking it one step deeper of looking at, what do I really do well? What brings me alive? That's a pointer to, I'm aligned now with my essence, and my gifts are aligned. Now I can really be moving more toward things in the world where I'm serving in a way from my heart, my soul, and my purpose.
That's awesome, dude. Yeah. I like that. The grand triad.
The grand triad of your essence. Exactly. What do you think your grand triad is? I know I'm putting you on the spot right now, but just take a crack at it for yourself. What are the 3 qualities that most describe you?
Integrity, presence, compassion.
Great. Integrity, presence, and compassion. Yeah. Great. So that forms the essence that then would inform who you are as a being giving your gifts in the world. And you might have lots of ways to look at your gift, but you may actually realize as you excavate under them that there's an essential gift, which is what I teach. And that essential gift actually informs all these other little aspects of the individual gifts you might give out into the world. Those are 2 pieces of unfolding a purpose, a little different than the vision plus action piece, but very similar, very similar.
No, it's good. Yeah. It's good. Now, okay, so we talked a little bit earlier on about purpose being a direction finder, or a path finder, or the way finder, I think you called it. What else do you think is the purpose of purpose?
Yeah, that's I've been mulling on this question. I think the purpose of purpose is to help me as a human being, to help you as a human being, is to come into alignment with who I am, come into alignment with my true nature, come more into alignment and rest in the authentic being that I am. And that purpose, this idea of purpose, is almost acceptable marker in our culture globally that's not woo-woo or have religious connotations or spiritually, kind of bizarre. It's a way to say, this is who I am. And so the purpose of purpose is a way for me to declare that, not only to find that for myself, but to declare that to the world and live from there. So the purpose is to live my authentic way of being, my true nature, out into the world. And I use this word purpose to help me connect to that, to connect to that, to connect to that. And that's that way of being. And then that purpose, that way of being, then does lead to actions that are aligned around who I am.
Yeah, that's actually a really nice description of how I see it. Yeah. I mean, I think it serves many other purposes as well, and it has many benefits in life because, the more I am aligned with who I really am, the more my life starts to take on and have meaning, real meaning for me. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, I'm going to have a reduction in stress. I'm going to have an increase in happiness. I'm going to have more of that oxytocin stuff or whatever it is that's floating around in my body. I'm going to be more willing to go out and exercise and take better care of myself and have greater relationships with people. I mean, all of those things come about as a result of really being clear on who I am and aligning fully with that essence.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I think the two questions to hold is in sort of what's the purpose of purpose? And then if I'm living from that place, what are the outcomes of it that are really important for my life? Yeah. And so what you were saying there, which I think is so important because people don't realize even the research, the data, the studies, I mean, all that Western scientific mind has put their lens on purpose and have found so many benefits when somebody declares that they feel like they're on purpose in their life. They're living from a place of purpose. You're right. They're happier. They're healthier. They have better relationships. And I could go on and on, which feels like the outcome of somebody aligning now more with their purpose. And that for me is not the purpose of purpose, right? The purpose of purpose is really to help us continue to wake up, evolve, and live from our deepest being, from our true nature. Then, like you said, if that place is happening, if that's happening in our lives, then all these other wonderful benefits happen around that. And I think that's what I want to link for people is if purpose feels like a nice to have, I'm just really busy doing all these other things and I've got my life all set up and you're avoiding that. I think you're avoiding what is probably the juiciest journey, the most important journey and the most rewarding journey is to really investigate that. Am I really living from that place? And am I aligning my life around it so that I'm feeling even more expanded, capable, excited, joyful, all those things. And I would say the big piece that I want people to get is at the end of all of that chain is to get out of your own narcissism and say, you're likely going to be way more in service to the world, to individuals, to your family, to our culture. If you're living from that place of purpose, it's a place of service. Yeah. It's the more I uncover my light and the more I get rid of, like you said, the dark places, the shadows, the negative beliefs, the shit that just kind of is on me. And I remove that. What naturally bubbles up is my authentic way of being, my essence and my gifts. But here's what I notice is that more and more of a desire to be of service to something greater than myself. And that's also part of the purpose of purpose is that waypointer. Still direction finder, but it's a direction finder toward in service to the world. And then that's where I find most people that as they've made their way along their purpose path, they feel like they're living it almost 100% of the time. They are filled up and feel meaning in their life because they're in some way serving other people. Yeah, not serving themselves, not trying to get another car and more money and another house or whatever. It's that.
Right. Well, that's interesting because the self-servingness that you're talking about is more about little SELF service.
Right.
Whereas the self-service we're talking about is more about capital SELF. We're dealing with, because we know who we really are, we recognize our connection with everything. We recognize that we're all one anyway. So anything I do is really in service to the entire organization, the entire organism, if you like.
Right.
And that kind of self-centeredness is absolutely essential.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And it's that self-centeredness that helps us to get connected to who we really are so that we can understand our purpose and start living from that. This is an amazing, a beautiful cycle of stuff that we've uncovered.
I like the big self, the big S self, because just to anchor that for people is that I call that's my true self. Just, instead of putting true in front of it, it's the big S, which is that is in me that is connected to all. That in me that is fully present and aware and awake in this moment. And that is when I'm connected to that and dialed into that, I'm into that big S self, right? Which when I'm coming from there, you're right, it's almost a natural, effortless gift to the world of how my presence is, how I'm being compassionate, open, aware, without having to do anything. David, how about that for you and I, recovering doaholics, right? Is that my presence is more than enough if it's coming from that deepest place of that big S self, or that sense of my true being of fully aware, compassionate, in my heart, caring, open-hearted, loving, that is enough. And it's more than enough. If I'm coming from that place, if I'm being that being, that's really key. So, yeah.
The little self is really all about ego. Mm-hmm. And the big self, and I think of capital S, capital E, capital L, capital F. That to me is an acronym that stands for spiritually empowered life force.
Ooh, I like that. I haven't heard that. Is that in your book? Is that in your book? I think
it is in my book. Yeah.
That's right. Okay, I think I read it. Spiritually empowered life force.
Yeah.
Oh, I like it. Okay, can I steal that and use it?
You can certainly use it.
Okay. Yep.
Anyway, Chris, it's been awesome. I mean, this has been a great conversation. I just really, really enjoy spending time with you always. And I just want to thank you for being here. And but we are past our time now. So I just want to say thank you to all of you for listening in and participating in today's program. Remember, you can watch recordings of this and all other previous shows on my website at lifemasterytv.com. That's life-mastery-tv.com. And as you go through your week, I'd like to remind you about the Life Mastery mantra. Gratefully forgive the imperfect being you have been in the past. Gratefully accept the magnificent being you are right now. And gratefully welcome the evolved being you are becoming in each new moment. Love, light, and blessings to you on your journey. I'll see you all next time on Life Mastery TV. Bye-bye now.
Bye. Thank you.